Congress. Representative Ed Royce is a California Republican. He is also the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Chairman Royce, thanks for joining me. I want to start with, this new development, and New York's mayor, he said no cause for alarm, but now New York and New Jersey decided to quarantine anyone arriving at their airports. We're hearing today federal officials responding in a not positive way, to say the very least, to these new mandates. What's your reaction? Good idea? Going too far?
We had hearings on this subject, and Samaritan's Purse, which is one of the organizations doing that work on the ground, said that they thought the rules should be that when a health worker comes back to the United States, they should be self-quarantined, and what they do is quarantine close to a facility like Emory, a facility which can handle that kind of a case should things go wrong. So I think this is another example of the federal regulations being pretty lax, those on the ground, the organizations, suggesting more effective regulations, and then the state government coming in to endorse those ideas, and then maybe finally the federal government coming in behind the states. I think, yes, I think this is necessary.
So we talk about people like Dr. Craig Spencer. Many of these healthcare workers have jobs at local healthcare facilities. So when they come back from West Africa, now we're talking about a potential trickle-down effect that's impacting hospital resources, impacting the families of these healthcare workers, impacting whether they can continue to make a living and make money. What would the response to that be? I mean, have you thought that through in terms of how the resources are going to be there, both for the individual as well as their healthcare facilities?
Yes, remember, we're only talking about 21 days. That's the period of time in which someone might be carrying the virus and not be aware of it. But the other suggestion we're making on the committee, the initiative I'm trying to affect, is one in which we're not allowing visas for individuals from those 3 West African countries to come to the United States. Because in 2009, when we had the problem with the influenza, with the H1N1 flu epidemic, we did that with one of the consulates. And I think it's very appropriate, until we get a handle on this and until we get better testing, we should hold that in abeyance as well. Those 2 steps will help a great deal.
How confident are you in the U.S.'s ability to keep Ebola from spreading in a significant way?
Well, remember, as long as we allow 100 visas a day, or as long as we don't put in place the protocols to really have a check against those who are coming back from the region, then we've got a challenge here. The last element of this, of course, is what we can do on the ground in West Africa. And as you can see, Britain has taken on the case of Sierra Leone. The United States is working with Liberia. France is beginning to work with Guinea. That is because the World Health Organization dropped the ball, and the information we're getting back is that it's going to be necessary for us to step it up. One of the things we'd like to see is the World Health Organization to bring back many of their experts, their doctors from around the world, countries in various, they're represented all over the globe. Bring those who can actually train and help set up the quarantine systems and help treat, bring them back to West Africa, to these 3 countries. So the United States is going to work in tandem with the World Health Organization to do this, but in the meantime, clearly, the U.S., France, and Britain are going to take the lead on the ground.
All right, Congressman, please stay with us, because we want to talk to you about what happened in Ottawa this week as well, and whether the greatest terrorism threat to the U.S. is abroad or in the homeland. Let's talk more about ISIS and the terrorism with Congressman Ed Royce of California. He is the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, joining us once again. Chairman Royce, I want to get your thoughts on this week's terror attacks in Canada. First, I want to remind everybody about what happened. On Monday, a radicalized convert to Islam used his car to run down and kill a uniformed Canadian soldier. And then on Wednesday, the shocking images out of Ottawa, the gunman who opened fire first at the National War Memorial, killing a soldier, before then heading into the Parliament building, where he was feet away from Parliament members, even the Prime Minister. He was eventually shot and killed. Chairman Royce, these attacks in Canada have really put a spotlight this week on this so-called lone wolf attacker There have been many warnings about these types of attacks. In fact, I want to listen to what the former head of the National Counterterrorism Center told CNN's Jim Sciutto this week before that attack in Ottawa.
I would say the most likely type of attack is one of these homegrown violent extremists or, lone offenders in the United States.
So, Chairman Royce, is the U.S. putting enough effort in preventing these types of attacks?
Well, we're attempting to prevent these attacks, but as you can imagine, this is much more difficult than trying to follow an organization like Al-Qaeda with the structure and the intelligence assets that we have to monitor. In this case, what you're actually responding to is a message that went out about a month ago by the ISIS organization asking for lone wolf attacks in the United States and in France and in other allied countries. And so as a consequence, you can see on the internet how they're able to inspire individuals to carry out these attacks. The reason Parliament is a target, of course, is because it represents democracy itself. And I did talk on the phone with one of the parliamentarians who I know in Canada while the attack had just begun, and he was on lockdown there, but he told me the shooter just came through the main corridor there of the Parliament. And so we're going to have to get better in the West at being prepared for lone wolf attacks, but it will be more difficult than being able to follow a structured organization like Al-Qaeda.
Tracking is definitely an issue, and we also heard from that former head of the National Counterterrorism Center telling CNN that intelligence leaks made public by Edward Snowden have now caused the U.S. to perhaps lose track of terrorists overseas. So are you concerned that we have lost contact with people and groups that are plotting against the U.S.?
It is more difficult, and a few years ago in Canada there was an attempted attack by 18 jihadists who had at that point in time put together a plan to use 3 tons of ammonium nitrate in order to hit the Parliament. And as part of this convoluted scheme, they were then going to take the Prime Minister of Canada into custody, head him, and of course publicize all of this. Now, because of the ability to track that jihadist organization, intelligence agencies were able to intervene, and those 18 are now in jail. Likewise, in Britain, we've been able to stop many attacks simply because of the capability of monitoring those who were involved in the plot. But obviously, as you can see, things are going to become more and more a challenge as this evolves. So that brings up another question. What can we do in the West? What can we do to actually begin to offset the propaganda war that ISIS is engaged in on this virtual caliphate of the internet that they're using now?
And what can we do?
Well, that's one of the issues we're going to hold some hearings on in order to find out what is effective in debunking this allure or this magnet for young 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old males in the West to either be converted into this cause or to be radicalized to follow ISIS. I think this is going to require the type of thinking that we used during the Cold War in order to sort of offset the competing ideology at that time. But we're going to have to get good at it very quickly.
Well, we hope you'll join us and circle back around on that point after you have those meetings. Thank you so much, Chairman Ed Royce. We do appreciate your time today.
Thank you.